In this week's show, we're getting into the zone. Collier County is among the leading crop of communities embracing the Blue Zone philosophy. So we begin with Blue Zone Basics, a roadmap to healthy living. Researchers scoured the world and found common practices that resulted in long life and well-being.
It's not like it's rocket science. It's kind of what our grandmother or great-grandmother probably would have told us. I often will explain to folks it's kind of like the old world being reintroduced to the new world.
Then in Going Blue, schools in Collier County are showing their colors, incorporating the health guidelines into their day. Plus, being active is a cornerstone of a healthy lifestyle. In that spirit, we show you the power of pickleball, the first ever championship played this week in Naples. I'm Amy Osher. Thanks for joining us. We'll also have a commentary from Alan Bartlett. That's all coming up. Welcome back to Behind the Headlines. Aging well is something most of us aspire to, living a long and healthy life. When you figure in quality of life, Southwest Florida is doing pretty well. The data backs it up. The newest Gallup Healthway Index ranks Collier County the happiest community, topping the nation in well-being. And the recent Robert Wood Johnson survey puts Collier in the number 2 spot for healthiest in the state, with Lee County coming in at 16. Surveys weigh a mix of factors that encompass a healthy lifestyle, and it's lifestyle choices that bring us back to Blue Zones, a community-wide effort to put positive practices into play. The concept of Blue Zones comes from a study by National Geographic explorer Dave Buettner. Through his travels, he identified a handful of cultures scattered across the globe, where a high percentage of people live past 100 years old. In identifying these Blue Zones, Buettner looked for common practices that contributed to long life.
What we find with Blue Zones Project, it's not like it's rocket science. It's kind of what our grandmother or great-grandmother probably would have told us. I often will explain to folks it's kind of like the old world being reintroduced to the new world. And what we find happens with the Blue Zones Project, it will add lift and momentum to existing programs, and it'll help bring people together in ways they might have forgotten.
At its core, Blue Zones are built upon the Power 9 principles: moving naturally, having purpose, downshifting stress, mindful eating, adopting the plant slant diet, drinking in moderation, faith, family, and finding a supportive tribe. Last year, Collier County adopted a 10-year community-wide effort to become Blue Zone certified.
It still is kind of a novel concept. I do not recall in my adult life ever before seeing a community-wide health and wellness improvement initiative that's absolutely free for everyone to participate in and that truly embraces so many sectors of the community. So individuals, families, neighborhoods, associations, civic organizations, churches, grocery stores, schools, restaurants, employers, and government. It's literally everybody.
Collier County schools are also getting into the zone, with 4 campuses designated as Blue Zone this week and 1 last month. We went behind the headlines to see what it means to go blue. With a drum roll adding a dose of fanfare, Naples High School pumped up its commitment to blue, officially cutting the ribbon on Blue Zone certification. There were 4 ceremonies just like this on Wednesday, this being Collier's first high school.
I'm proud and I'm lucky to be part of such an outstanding school.
Barry Walsh is a senior, closing in on graduation. Skills he's learning here may stick with him through life, down to making better choices in the cafeteria.
I think it is important. I think healthy food is beneficial. It should be included during lunch.
Going Blue took months of planning.
We had students, parents, community members, and staff all involved.
To find ways to incorporate healthy practices, algebra teacher Stephanie Smarge put her thinking cap on to figure out how to bring movement to math.
As an algebra teacher, it's hard sometimes because the kids are sitting a lot and a lot of it's like bookwork and taking notes.
What's an idea of how you can incorporate movement?
So I use what's called QR codes. I don't know if you've ever seen them on your phone, but I'll actually make my own QR codes that'll have a math problem attached to it. So the kids will go around with their cell phone and they have to I hide the QR codes around the classroom. They have to find them, take a picture of it, it'll tell them a math problem, and then they go back to their desk and have to solve it.
One example of smart integration. Each school developed a plan of at least 20 action items, putting into motion a lifetime of good practices. The Blue Zone effort being multi-pronged, restaurants are also getting involved, with kitchens offering more earthy options. With the fundamental principle of plant slant, green may be the new blue. Experts suggest going green, putting less meat and more plants in your diet. Cider Press Cafe became the area's first Blue Zone approved restaurant last year. It turned out to be a perfect pairing. The cafe prides itself on a menu that's gluten-free, vegan, cold, and raw. More recently, the dock at Creighton Cove and its sister property Riverwalk at Tin City got Blue Zone designations, adding a half-dozen plant-based options. The restaurant outreach has a goal of getting about 36 restaurants on board, turning about 10% of the area's restaurants into Blue Zones. Still to come, the power of pickleball. Naples was ground zero for the sport this week, hosting the first ever U.S. Open Pickleball Championship. We go in for a closer look. Stay with us. Welcome back to Behind the Headlines. It's a photo for the ages, an update to the picture 4 soldiers took 50 years ago before shipping off to Vietnam. We showed you the original photo last week on Behind the Headlines. Since then, the 4 vets reunited and snapped an updated picture. Naples resident Bob DiVenezia was one of those battle-tested Marines who hit the beach in a swimsuit standing by a surfboard, recreating their pose. This marked the first time the men were together in 50 years since taking the original photo.
It's been an amazing response. We've had requests from national TV stations. The story was featured on ABC Nightly News last night. We've had requests from Australia, from the United Kingdom. It's been really surprising, but really amazing. All of the great response that we've gotten. It's been all over Facebook, thousands of comments, and every single comment has just been thanking the guys for their service and really appreciative of all they've done for our country.
And can you remind us what the actual photo is?
Yeah, it's a photo that they recreated from one that they took in 1966, just before they shipped off to Vietnam. There were 4 friends who just were out at the beach one day, and they kind of lost touch with each other over the years, but they've reconnected within the last couple years, and they redid this photo that was the first time in 50 years that they've all been together.
I spent all last night when I got home, plus all this morning after golf, talking to producers, directors. I don't even know what half the stuff is. It's amazing, but this makes up for us being ignored and spit upon 50 years ago, so I think it evened out.
All the soldiers saw combat in Vietnam. 3 were machine gunners, 1 was an anti-tank man. 2 of them earned a Purple Heart, and they all made it home. Maybe you saw it. Naples was getting a lot of attention from New York Post columnist Cindy Adams. Our own Alan Bartlett has something to say about that.
I don't know about you, but I'm consistently amazed by what gets folks so riled up around here. But thankfully, there's an antidote. It's called the acronym. For many people, once they get settled here, it's okay for others to build new stuff as long as it's not in my backyard. Yes, that's the NIMBYs. Can you say Bonita Springs High School, children? Yet there are some people who just don't want anything else built here or anything done that they don't like. That's why we have the Citizens Against Virtually Everything, CAVE, otherwise known as the Cave People. In the last few days, our Facebook friends blew up over a New York Post piece written by a columnist who visited Naples and hung out with Judge Judy. For the 99.999% of you who didn't see that column, what's-her-name poked fun at Naples for being wealthy. Well, for example, she wrote that Naples people have to hire somebody to pick up their money. It's obvious she didn't visit the fine folks who live on Park Avenue in Naples. They sure don't have that kind of money. Maybe the next time she wants to visit somewhere to make fun of rich people, she should go to that city up north where the guy who is running for president on the Republican side, who keeps telling us he has more money than God. Hey, Isn't that the same place where the former mayor, who actually does have more money than God, lives? The guy who also was thinking about running for president because apparently he doesn't like that Trump guy too much. So we need an acronym for the Post columnist. I'm kind of busy here, so the best I could come up with is hungover, old, travelers, agitated instead of relaxing. That's HOTAIR. The Hot Air Club. When you hate it here so much you move here, you can transfer your membership to the sister Hot Air Club. Hungover, old transplants, agitated in retirement. Sometimes the acronym antidote doesn't work, so you need to spin off someone else's name. Like the opponents to Blue Zones. So if Blue Zones promote healthy lifestyles and longevity, how about the opponents to them designating the area as I prefer to be Blue Zone? Or you can feast on salt and snacks, then join the Blue Zone. Well, I've got to finish my carrots before I go to a meeting of the Hot Air Club and meet some cave people. So I've got to run. That's what I'm thinking. Join in the conversation at naplesnews.com.
If you'd like to weigh in, you can always drop us a line or leave a comment on our Facebook page. Great time to check in on what we're working on in the Daily Newsroom. Here's the Editor's Corner. And we thought we'd take this opportunity to introduce a new face here at the Naples Daily News. This is our features editor, Pam Fisher, who's going to bring a different perspective to us in the paper. First of all, tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I started my career as an arts and culture editor in San Francisco, and I covered theater for the San Francisco Examiner. And I was out 5 nights a week reviewing theater, which was a great job, and sort of just fell in love with it. Went to art gallery openings, wine festivals and receptions, and just really was sort of smitten with the rich ways people plugged into the arts and culture scene there.
And certainly a big art and culture scene in San Francisco. What drew you to Naples?
Well, I had worked in Cincinnati after 10 years in San Francisco. In 2004, Gannett recruited me, and I was the arts and culture editor on the features desk there. We had a staff of 15 critics and folks covering everything from plays and indie music festivals to opera and ballet. And I did that for 3 years and then moved into academia and taught feature writing, arts and culture criticism. And I talked with Rich Bainey, at the time was on our board of directors and was involved with some television stations, and told me about the Naples Daily News. And I was just really attracted to sort of the rich arts and culture scene and the ways that folks plugged into it here. And then I met Manny and was really impressed with his idealism as an editor and the impressive work he'd done in Miami. So here I am.
And you also inherited a pretty deep bench of talent here, though, with some of your reporters that have very well-established followings and beats.
Right. So Harriet Hyde House has been covering arts and culture here for more than a decade, is really plugged in, introduced me to some friends at Artist Naples, went and reviewed there my first week in town, a touring Broadway show. Dave Osborne has been covering popular culture and music for about 10 years here also. And we decided we also wanted to have a millennial perspective. And so we've added 2 new millennial reporters. And so we've got Christine Gill, who's been with us for a couple weeks now, and she's covering things like pop culture trends. She wrote a great piece on Seder last week, where Mandarin and Portuguese and many languages were spoken. So we'll kind of focus on the rich international sort of culture here. And then we've got a new reporter joining us from Kansas in a few weeks, right out of school. So
I know people who consume our products come to rely on us for having a lot of great additions in the feature arena. Yeah. But you plan to really take it up a notch. What areas, you said, looking at pop culture, which people don't necessarily associate with Naples, but everyone has it.
Right. So yeah, pop culture changes depending on what century you're in. So in the 18th century, it was opera buffa and operetta. And so, but we'll be looking at lots of things from pet parenting and relationships and the way that we interact with our pets as family members, to sort of technology trends for sure, and the way that impacts our entertainment choices, right? Mm-hmm. So you can listen to a podcast from maybe Artist Naples. And so we'll just begin to look at intrinsic Naples things through the eyes of millennials a little bit.
Excellent. And to give them a sneak peek too, we're talking about doing a pop studio and kind of doing a studio discussion of some neat things that are going on and really how it's kind of significant of what's going on across the country. So people will have to stay tuned and pick up their papers to see.
Yeah.
Coming up, a unique dinner party that'll stay in the memory of diners long after their meal is digested. An inspired evening of visual and culinary art. It has a funny name, but people who play pickleball take it pretty seriously. It may be thought of as an alternative to shuffleboard, but the combo tennis, ping pong, badminton is not for the sedentary. With the first national championship taking place in Naples this week, our sports reporter Adam Fisher reveals the power of pickleball.
Thanks, Amy. I'm here at the U.S. Open Pickleball Championships, the first year it's been held in Naples, and they expect close to 10,000 spectators to see this up-and-coming sport. Now, a lot of people hear pickleball, they think their grandparents, retirement communities, but as you can see behind me, it's not like that anymore. There are players from 13 years old to 83 years old going to play this week. Pickleball is a combination of tennis, ping pong, and badminton, all rolled into one sport that any age can play. As you can see behind me, it's played on a badminton-sized court with hard paddles and a wiffle ball that goes back and forth. You can play singles, you can play doubles. And all divisions will be in play here this week at Naples. This is the first year of the tournament, and it's committed to be here for 3 years at East Naples Community Park. We recently installed 10 permanent courts and have 48 total set up, including the championship finals.
Because it's an up-and-coming pastime, we thought we'd test your pickleball prowess. We hit the circuit to see how much you know about the sport in this week's Street Beat.
Use a paddle and you have kind of a wiffle ball. It's a little bit smaller. And that's pretty much all you need. Your court is a little bit smaller than a tennis court. I always like to say it's kind of like a smaller version of ping pong and tennis combined.
It's very similar to tennis. You stand similarly, you have to serve as well, and you hit the ball back and forth.
It's faster paced for me because it's all reactionary. The court obviously is smaller, so you have to be on your feet and aware that ball is coming over. And even as a wiffle ball, as it seems to be, it can go pretty quickly as it hits that paddle and comes back to you.
The way you score is you have to have possession of the ball in the serve in order to score. So if your opponent is serving, it just rotates to his partner if they win the point, but they don't actually get awarded a point. So if you and I were playing together and I served and we got the point, then we would get one. Then if we played again and I missed, then the serve would go to you because each side gets it twice. So you have to have the ball in your service possession, either you or your partner, in order to get a point. That's probably one of the hardest parts of pickleball, is just keeping straight who's serving and where everybody should be. So, but you catch on to it after a while.
This can only be described as a night to remember, the last dinner party of the season in a unique series that immerses guests in an evening of food and art. You're invited in our Living Lux feature.
So this is our fourth in the series of Dinner with Artists for this year, and we are with Ran Adler. And Ran is an assembly artist, so he takes found art and he creates his artwork from it. So one of the reasons that we put Dinner with Artists together was so that people do get that connection and the introduction to the process of creating art and what that creative process is from the artistic side. And so we thought, why not pair it with food, because everybody has to eat. So then we came up with, let's pair an artist, a visual artist, with a culinary artist and have them meet and come up with a common theme. And then the two make the presentation that night to our guest.
Tonight, the idea is that as an artist with a chef, we're talking about the foraging of materials and how I go out and find my materials and how he does that to create our pieces of art. Brian is creating a very interesting menu tonight from things he has found locally, and I'm assembling mahogany pods that have been scrounged from the streets of Naples.
What I tried to do was I meet with the artist and we try to do something along the same lines as their art. So Mr. Adler does foraging for his art. So he gets natural palms and sea beans and whatever it is that he uses. So I went and tried to do, okay, if I was out foraging for food right now, obviously in the north, not really down here because I have a full garden, what would I be able to get? And so we chose some fiddleheads, some Japanese knotweeds, and some different things that would be kind of fun that are only available certain times of the year because it's springtime. And so we did a 4-course meal with some past appetizers that we just thought would be fun and just something a little bit different, get me out of my comfort zone a little bit.
That brings this edition of Behind the Headlines to a close. Hope the show inspired you to get moving. You can rewatch or share the show by going to naplesnews.com or liking us on Facebook. I'm Amy Osher. We'll see you back here next week.